Welcome to the Greenwich Means Business podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Greenwich Means Business podcast. I'm Dardan and today we are joined by Graeme Tong. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. Graeme Tong. My title here at the University of Greenwich is Head of International Recruitment. So I head the team that really take Greenwich out to the rest of the world to promote the university to interested students in different parts of the world and help those students with the application process and arrangements for their visa so they can come and study with us here in London.
Great, lovely to have you, Graeme. And so I guess we can start this off by saying, how can international students apply for the University of Greenwich and how is this presented to them? How is this promoted to them?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll start just by outlining the ways international students can apply to the university. And that really depends on whether you're an undergraduate or postgraduate student. So undergraduates, we have two ways they can apply to us. So if you're coming out of school, looking to come to do your bachelor's degree with us, an undergraduate degree, you can either apply through UCAS, which is the University and Colleges Admissions service in the UK. So you can apply via UCAS. It's a separate third-party company that manages applications to UK universities. So either via UCAS, or you can use one of our trusted official representative education agents. And these are organisations we work with in different parts of the world to guide students on how to apply, what documents they need, helping them through the process and helping them understand the differences between different universities and different programmes. So yeah, for undergraduates, either via UCAS or via an agent. And I just think it's worth pointing out as well for UCAS that it's there is a small fee to apply via that service. It's £28.50 for 2025. Using one of our agents should be free generally, although some will have different costs, different services they offer. So students should check to see what is involved in using one of our representatives. And for postgraduate students, somewhat similar. They can also use one of our trusted international representatives, our education agents we work with, or they can apply direct on our website. So they can apply directly to Greenwich on our website, which is free of charge. So a couple of differences there between undergrads and postgraduates. I think if I can, I want to talk a little bit more about agents as well, because I know for many students in different parts of the world, especially in South Asia, Southeast Asia and West Africa, there will be a lot of agents, and choosing the right one, it can be a little bit difficult, and it can be quite hard to know who to trust in that space, because there's a lot of different organisations and individuals offering help and guidance, and students should be, I think, quite careful to spend time researching who the right agent to use is. Yeah. You can go on our website and there are specific country pages for each student depending on the nationality, and we'll list all of our official representatives. So if the student's unsure, they can check our website to make sure we have a relationship with that agency, just to be safe.
Yeah. So there's an actual official link between the university and these agents as well, right?
Yes, that's right. So we work with a select number of agencies, and they will have a direct relationship with us, and they will be, as I say, listed on our website. So students should be ensuring they're working with only the agents that are trusted, official representatives of the University of Greenwich.
Thank you very much. And so the international application process is quite different from that of the home student as well. So could you maybe highlight some of the key challenges associated with the international application process?
Yeah, so it is quite a big difference. Obviously, if you're an international student, coming to the UK, it's going to be very different from a British student who's will be very used to the system that's been in place in the UK for many years. Whereas for international students, it may well be the first time they've left their home country. It's a big step for them. So we understand that's it's a big decision and one which is going to need quite a lot of support and sort of information and guidance around. So we do have that, as I say, through our trusted agent partners. I think it's worth pointing out as well that we do have a specific international recruitment team who are a team of 8 who are part of the international recruitment team I head up, and they will be there also to help advise and guide students. So if a international student is unsure about any part of the process, they can contact us and reach out to us directly. And again, those contact details are on the country pages on the website. So we do have a dedicated team here at Greenwich who are responsible region by region and country by country to support students with those steps to applying and those steps to coming to study at the University of Greenwich. I think what some of the other challenges as well for us, and what sometimes takes a little bit of time. I know students are very keen for a decision on their application and to have certainty around the getting an offer and making plans, but it does take us a few days sometimes, maybe a couple of weeks in cases, to assess a student's application. There's going to be quite a few differences between various different education systems around the world and the UK one. So we need to look at a student's qualification, understand if it matches the UK system, and will allow them to come and study at undergraduate or postgraduate level with us. And then make sure also they have the right grade. And obviously the grading systems differ country to country, so we'll need to do take our time to make sure that the students have the right level of academic background to be successful with us.
Yeah, please talk us through some of the misconceptions of studying abroad, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I think motivation for coming to study in the UK is going to be different for undergrads as opposed to postgraduate students. And so we're aware that we need to support and give slightly different information to those two groups, and obviously to different individuals from different countries, depending on what information they're interested in. But obviously we throughout the application process, we provide students with various information by email. We do have a team that will conduct outbound phone calls to students to support them as well if needed. So we will be providing a lot of the key information to international students along that application process. It's things like everything from accommodation is obviously a big one for any student. And as for undergraduates, there's probably more from the family and from the parents or guardians, more of a concern around accommodation and finding somewhere safe and secure to live. And that's totally understandable. We're very fortunate here at the university that we've got, I think, 5 halls of residence based across our 3 campuses. Obviously, we have the campuses in Greenwich, Avery Hill and Medway, and we have halls of residence at each of those and space for international students to stay with us. There's also private accommodation that students can look for, and it's a very big sort of sector in London. So students coming to study in London will have a fair bit of choice about where they live. We would certainly recommend living close to where you're studying.
Yeah.
We have had instances in the past of students probably being an hour away from campus.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think the journey, at the time it maybe felt like a better option if, the cost of accommodation was slightly lower than other options that were nearer to like where we are in London at Greenwich. I think it's really important to be aware of where your campus is, where you should be based, and definitely pick accommodation that's located in the right place for you. If you have to go an hour or more for your lectures, it's going to make things very hard for you and become a bit of a barrier to you wanting to be in class. So I
Yeah.
think that's definitely a very key message from today, is to be very aware with the University of Greenwich which campus you're studying at, and picking the right accommodation.
Yeah.
Aside from accommodation, which is an issue for undergraduates and postgraduates, I think the issue of work and working,
Yeah, I was going to mention this as well.
is a really key question for students. So when you come to study full time with us or with any UK university, you'll be on a what's called a student visa, and that will allow you to study. That allows you to study full time, obviously, but it will also allow you to work 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
During term time, with less restrictions on hours in holiday periods, but 20 hours a week term time. So students will be able to work up to 20 hours a week to find jobs in the local area to help with with some of the costs associated with studying or being in London or being away from home.
Yeah, because as far as I remember, I don't think they're eligible for student finance, right? I think that's just for home students.
Yeah, that's right. So a UK student, or those that are UK residents and have been for 3 years or more, I believe will be eligible for student finance from the UK government. Whereas international students, on the whole, will need to be self-funding. So they will need to consider both the tuition costs and then living costs as well.
Yeah.
Some governments, some companies, some sort of sponsor bodies will offer various scholarships or funding which will be specific to that country or that organisation.
Okay, nice. Very insightful. Could you talk to us a bit about the visa requirements for the international students?
Yeah, sure. So the student visa, I think, will be a big area of, students will have a lot of questions on that, and that's often seen as one of the bigger hurdles to coming to the UK. Is obviously you've got your offer to study with us, and you've got all the preparation done on the preparation, but it's the visa application that I think for a lot of students is the area they worry about or need to get some support with. I mentioned earlier that education agents that we work with, those official representatives, they will be there to help guide with that part of the process. So they should be able to offer students that sort of service and support. If not, I would recommend students, if they aren't having that support and they have questions, they should go to a official, fully licensed and accredited visa guidance service, and you can go and get that support to submit the visa application from a fully recognised professional who's accredited to give you guidance on submitting your visa. But just to give a bit of an overview though of the student visa, I think the key things and where students tend to go wrong and maybe face a refusal for not submitting the correct documents are normally around the funds they need to demonstrate to the UK government for their visa. And at the minute, as well as showing the tuition or showing that you've paid the tuition, if you pay Greenwich all of your tuition, then you don't need to then show that you have that money that's paid to us, that's fine. Or if you pay half, you only need to then show that you have half of the tuition in your bank account. As well as the tuition, you do need to pay what's called maintenance fee, and this maintenance amount is for London it's £12,006, so that's 12,006 currently, and that is amount you need to show to confirm to the UK government that you have the means to live and sustain yourself in whilst you're here for your studies, basically. So as well as the tuition fees, you need to show this maintenance amount of £12,006. That's for the London. That's a London fee. There are set different fees for outside of London. Students should be aware of. So that's key. That money needs to be in a bank statement of the student or the parent or fully recognised legal guardian of the student for a 28-day period. So all of the funds must be there for the continuous 28-day period. So that cannot drop during one day below the amount you need, and it must be in a personal account. So we can't accept business accounts from parents or from the students themselves. So it must be in a personal account of the student or the parent or guardian of the student for a 28-day period. And if it's a parent or guardian's personal account, we'll need to see a birth statement and have a letter confirming that those funds are accessible to the student. And if it's a student's guardian, it must be a fully recognised legal guardian with the correct paperwork and confirmation from the relevant local authority government office in the student's home country. So that's worth bearing in mind. So the bank statements and funds shown are really key for the visa. In some countries, there will be additional requirements around proof of tuberculosis, TB. So students should definitely check if their country is one that they will then need to provide a TB test certificate. So that's another thing to bear in mind for some students that sometimes they get caught out on, because that test may take several weeks to book. So you should, do prepare early for your visa and, look at what the requirements are so you can ensure that you have, the funds in place, the TB test taken. You'll need to provide the English test, obviously, for your entry to Greenwich. But you also need to submit that as well on your visa. So you're going to need all of those documents ready. You can find information on that on the gov.uk website. So I would suggest to students you do things early, and you can do that, in advance of the intake starting, and you should do that really, I'd say, several months, 3 or 4 months minimum before coming to study with us. You should start planning for that. The other thing with visas to mention is that we will need to give students what's called a CAS, and that's CAS, and that stands for Confirmation of Acceptance of Studies document that we'll need to provide to the student. It's a code that they need to enter to apply for their visa. And we'll only give that to students once they've been through our sort of compliance systems and we've checked that they've got everything. So actually, in terms of support, we do a lot for students in that space, and we'll take them through an online system that will prepare them and ensure that they've got everything they need to then get their CAS to then apply for their visa. So really, in terms of kind of like a timeline, students can submit documents. They can then, if they don't have every single final degree certificate or English test, for example, ready, they can get a conditional offer and they can pay a deposit once they have that conditional offer. Once they then have the remainder of the documents, maybe they've got their final grade at university or their final high school transcripts, or they're waiting for their second reference, for example, to come in. Once we have that, they can become an unconditional offer holder. Once they are unconditional and they have paid a deposit, they will then go into our visa compliance CAS system. They'll be invited to that, and that's an online software that will run them through the preparation steps to then receive their CAS. Once their CAS is received, they can then apply for their student visa. Hopefully then the visa is granted pretty quickly. They then travel, arrive and enroll with us in time for the first classes. We do face quite a lot of challenges with students arriving right at the sort of start of term or even somewhat few weeks into term, and because they face some delays, slow turnaround times with visa decisions. So my other key message today would be, please do things early and in advance, and really 4 or 5 months before your start date to make sure you're here on time. There's a strong relationship between start time and student attainment, And the first few weeks are really critical to making sure students get settled and prepared academically and are successful academically. So really the more on time a student can arrive, the better they're going to do in their studies. So that's a really key message for students to be aware of.
Well, thank you for clearing those requirements up. There's quite a lot, so hopefully everyone understood the process. So yeah. And so let's talk about the process itself then. So how does it work? Once a student contacts maybe an agent or applies directly through UCAS, what is the process for an international student to get admitted?
Yeah, sure. So we obviously require a certain set of documents from students to be able to apply, and for us to then make an assessment of that student's suitability for their program. We obviously need some form of academic transcripts. Now, if you're studying at undergraduate, that would be your high school transcripts or your provisional grades. A lot of students will apply before they've actually got their final marks, or whilst they're doing exams, and obviously that's it's a busy, often stressful time for students that they're applying for overseas university at the same time as they're undergoing their final exams at school. So we can take provisional marks if that is what a student has. And same for postgraduate students. If they're finishing their first degree, their undergraduate degree in the home country, and then looking to study a master's in the UK, if they haven't yet finished fully their degree, they can send us provisional statements. So we can take those, which is fine. We'll then need, on top of that, some form of personal statement. And if you're applying as an undergraduate to UCAS, the UCAS system will prompt you to complete that or to submit that. And then there'll also be the need, if you're applying for a UCAS, for a letter of recommendation. And as well, if you're coming via direct to us or direct from an agent, I would also recommend getting your personal statement and a letter of recommendation, a letter of reference to submit with your application. And that can be really for undergraduates, that could be a high school counsellor. Maybe if they have done a little bit of part-time work, that will be fine. One of their teachers at school, anybody that can write a reference to sort of confirm that academic standing.
Okay.
And then for postgraduates, that letter of recommendation can be likewise somebody from their university, one of their tutors, or for any work they've done.
Nice, okay, thank you. A lot of students come from all corners of the world, as you said before, so how can international students highlight experiences in their applications?
Yeah, sure. So I think obviously the personal statement is the opportunity, the moment that you have to highlight your qualities, your skills, your motivations, and the reason for you wanting to study with us and study that degree. So I think students should really, firstly, be aware that we highly value their international experience and their diversity at the university, and it makes our classes and our campus an incredibly international and diverse place. Regularly we'll have over 100 nationalities on campus, so it's a very international sort of environment. Students should really highlight anything that's specific to their home country, their cultural background. Any international experiences they've had will be great. And we really value that, so I think they shouldn't underestimate the nature of their own personal experience they've had in their home country, and how that will bring difference and valuable experiences to the classroom. So that's, I think, really, really important for them to be aware of, and something students can sometimes maybe overlook or not be fully aware of. But on the personal statement, it's I think really important that they do highlight that cultural diversity they had, and their personal experiences, their lived experiences, and that what has motivated them to this point to want to come to study abroad.
Yeah.
Coming to study abroad is a huge step. So, not one people will probably take lightly. So I'm sure students have got really good stories and motivations that they can share with us in the personal statements that will really support their application.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So once the students are admitted, the application process is finalized, what are the support services available to them to kind of, get them settled into the UK, trying to help them find their footing?
Yeah, sure. So I think I just wanted to just to mention a couple more things on the application side of things first. The documents I mentioned earlier, the academic transcripts, the references, the personal statement, we do need those. They're mandatory. For some postgraduate courses, there may be a need for a CV. We have an MBA program that, or some programs may need work experience. And we might need to see that highlighted in a CV. So that's also just important to note. And also certain students will need to provide us with proof of their English language proficiency. We get a lot of students from countries that English is not the first language, although they may speak it regularly with friends or maybe even at university. Because it's not their first language or the official language of a country, we do need to have some sort of test or confirmation that they have the right level of English. And it's worth saying that we have a full list of those on the website, and we do accept a whole range of sort of official English tests like IELTS and TOEFL and PTE, which will be very common kind of English tests that students can take. But we do also take a lot of students' high school grades in English to prove that they have the right level of English. And these vary country to country, so it's definitely worth looking at our website and the country pages on the website to just double check what you need. So I think that's worth pointing out.
Yeah, 100%.
In terms of support services, I mean, there's really a whole range that we do along the whole journey for a student, and one that's going to be a key question for students is around funding. We do require students to obviously pay tuition fees, and we'll need to find funds to do that, and they'll need to be self-funding or have a sponsor funding body in their home country to help them with those costs. We do have some partial scholarships available. So those international scholarship awards are there for students to support with a percentage of the tuition costs. So we can help at the minute with up to £5,000 as essentially a reduction in their fee. So that's worth noting. So we do offer some financial support for the tuition. We do also offer students the chance to split their fees as well. They won't need to pay everything up front. They can pay, they need to pay 50% to register. So when they're wanting to enrol and join Greenwich, they'll need to pay half of those first year fees on enrolment. And then they can pay the second half of those fees at the beginning of semester 2. And for semester 2, if you're a September student, starting with us in the September intake, that would be the beginning of February, I believe. So it's like 4 months into the course. So we have some scholarships, some partial scholarships available to help with the tuition fee. We have a split instalment payment plan for the remainder of that tuition. So half at the beginning, half the beginning of semester 2. So that's the sort of financial support we give before the student gets to us. Alongside that, I think one of the things that UK universities do very well and why we have such high standing, aside from the academics and the quality of our teaching, which is globally known, it's the wraparound support services for students. So we offer a whole range of different specialist departments which can support students with really a whole range of different physical and mental well-being and health needs as well. So any students needing support with disability or dyslexia, we have a specific department and team for that. We have counselling and mental health services on campus and at the university. So students, no matter what sort of need they have, and we can help with various different counselling and mental health support, or a referral to obviously professional services depending on the situation.
Yeah.
We have support for those students who have care responsibilities, caring for a family member or a child, and we take that into consideration to try and support those coming from backgrounds where they've got more, I guess, responsibilities back home, which might have a bearing on how the levels of hours they can give to their studies. So we're flexibly and open-minded around care responsibilities for students. We obviously have medical services on all campuses in case of medical emergencies, so first aiders, for example. So it's obviously a sort of safe and secure place to be on campus. We also have a chaplaincy service, so any student, no matter what their religious background, can get support from our chaplaincy or chaplain. We have one at each campus who can be there to offer support from a religious sort of perspective for students.
Yeah.
And alongside that, we do have prayer rooms on campuses, multi-faith prayer rooms, so we can support students no matter what their religious background to be able to carry out their faith appropriately at the university.
Yeah.
And then finally, really, bullying harassment as well. We have a strong viewpoint and stand on bullying and harassment, and ensuring we have sort of all the necessary measures in place to reduce and keep that to a minimum, and support those impacted by it, and ensure we look to improve where we need to make sure the university is a really safe, welcoming, friendly, inclusive space basically for students. So no matter what your religious or cultural or sexual background, you'll be able to come to the university and feel safe and be able to be you and thrive as you on the campus.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Graeme, thank you very much. It's been a very insightful session with you, and to any international student out there who's thinking of applying to Greenwich, I really hope this podcast has helped you clarify everything with the whole process and the support you can get once you are admitted and once you are a student at the University of Greenwich. And I will see you at the next episode.
You can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Subscribe to never miss an episode.